little different. Is it not this? MPX, NGH, give the repo. Where did our Angular 6 one go? Give it our -- dir here. I wonder what it actually ran when I had the other command in there. Kind of odd that it has this command, but it runs ngh. Short for Angular GitHub Pages. Just want to push to GitHub Pages on the save repositories with the default. So we're going to give this a try. File, date, Angular CLI, GH pages, and to ngh. Ngh, yep. And in theory, I could test this command locally if I set this GitHub token environment variable. Well, I have not wanted to do that since I am streaming, and chances are it will show up in my stream, and I don't want to have to get rid of that token. Instead, we'll let Travis do its thing here. And in theory, I should be able to actually turn back on. I'm betting I can turn this back on. Travis deploy GH pages. Yep, provide the taxes token. Biggest thing is I want to make sure I don't have to push from master, because master doesn't have our changes. Target branch. Target branch. We're going to leave it on GH pages. I'm going to first let this one run and see if that fixes it. For something that you assume happens all the time, I mean, you would just think we'd have a lot more documentation around exactly how to do this, have more cookbook style kind of plug and play tutorials. And it feels like all of this content is kind of spread all over the place. Now, while we wait for that to build, let's talk a bit about this stuff here with, so I actually kind of like doing this npx x command over doing this deployment, strictly because this makes it so I'm not dependent on Travis. If I went to CircleCI or TeamCity or Jenkins. It's my config file changes, but this command would still be the same. Versus this is built into Travis, and so now I'm locked in for my deployment to Travis, and if I want to change it, it's a little more difficult to change. I'd have to figure out, does CircleCI or Jenkins or TeamCity or any other of the build providers have a version of a built-in deployment? If not, I'd have to go find this command. And the next step really for making this totally agnostic to the build provider is taking all these commands for the npm CI, the npm run, and this npx, and putting it either in the package, fully in the package JSON, or to create an actual like bash script or some kind of a command line script that I can run at any point in time outside of the actual build providers. And then it just becomes just configuration stuff, like only build on this branch, and anything you need to add to build up. Like I need to have Chrome installed in order to run the unit test successfully. You need to have Node installed in order to run the commands. But that stuff is outside of my actual builds. So kind of nice to get these commands so they're not so ingrained in the actual build provider. There's a little flexibility. And we are actually going through some of those changes right now. As one of my projects is working on changing build providers, and right now we had all the steps built into the build provider, and the new build provider doesn't have that same ability. Instead, we have to create configuration files, kind of like we did for the Travis YAML stuff. And so it's not just a quick, hey, tell one provider to, or tell the new provider, go grab all of our GitHub stuff and use this script. Instead, we're having to actually do some scripts and a lot more in depth than just telling the new provider, here's the repo and here's the script to run and being done. So we are actually moving towards having scripts instead of having everything built into the actual providers to give us that flexibility, because this is not the first time we have unfortunately changed build providers. And we are strictly changing build providers because the enterprise decided to change build providers, not because the ones we were using were not serving our needs, because they fully are. But when you work in an enterprise, you have to worry about licenses. And we don't get to do stuff like TravisCI and have our repos in the open, unless you're doing open source development, which our projects are not. So let's see if we refresh this page, if that did the trick for us. Okay, at least kept the base href this time. Interesting. You would assume base href would append on to all of these, but it does not. That seems like some real awesomeness there. This feels like an issue with potentially GitHub Pages and not knowing exactly what I am doing for deploying Angular to GitHub Pages, since that's not where I normally deploy it. Oh, let's do some quick searches here. Alligator.io normally has some really good articles. And we are running the exact command that they have said. Name repo. Ah, you know what? I wonder. This is a piece that we did not fully do. Oh, nice. There we go. I was hoping I'd get lucky. Yep. One more build coming up. ps:// digitaldrummerj.github.io. See what looks like. That's the only thing in the articles. We didn't have the full URL for this -- base ref. We only had the. I assumed we'd only need the /repo, but it doesn't look like it works that way, or at least according to this article. Look at one more just to verify. 'Cause I don't want to sit here and wait for the build just to wait for the build. So this makes it look like I don't need the full URL. One of the reasons we use this is it's supposed to take care of copying our index to our 404 page as well. Let's see if we do login. Nope. Same issue. Alright, we're going to run with this. You know that article looks like a copy of the previous one. So update base href to full URL. For something so easy, this is sure taking an awful long time to figure out. I figured we'd be done with this in like 10 minutes, because I kind of knew that we just needed to update the Cypress configurations and then push the stuff out. So let's take a look at this repo just to see how he or she actually is building index. Okay, so they do have the full URL in there. And we saw it working, so we will wait for this to finish. welcome. If you just joined us, we are waiting for our TravisCI build to work as we are trying to get everything working for deployment out to GitHub Pages. Where we are at right now is we discovered that our base href looks like it needs the full URL. Oh, this is what our TravisCI build is going to pump in there versus just the repository name in our base href. And hopefully that will fix our deployment to GitHub Pages. Right now we're just waiting for our build, so it'll go through linting, our unit test, our building a production deploy, our Cypress test, and then it will do our GitHub Pages deployment. So this will take a bit to run. If you have any questions about Cypress or Angular or anything else you're interested in, just pop it in the chat and I will get to it. So you can see right here we've got our full URL for our GitHub pages. I do see a blog post in my future for how to do all of this stuff. There is no way it should have taken us 3 hours of streaming to get all of our builds up and running and get a GitHub deployment. Uh-oh. This would be because we have since updated our base href. Let's think about this. Let's look back at this. Here and see. Is there an option to update the href? Message branch now, silent. There is not. So all of our tests are actually going to fail. Let's think about how can we fix this. Because I really want our Cypress test to run against a production build. And part of the reason for that is I've had some issues where everything runs great in development, and the minute we do a production build and try to run it, we run into an issue where maybe we have a reference in our HTML code that doesn't exist in the TypeScript file. Well, and sometimes those don't get caught in the build process, but they get caught when you try to launch the page. So we want those kind of errors to actually surface. So let's think on how do we fix this, because now that we have the full base href in here, that is screwing up all of our testing. I mean, the easy way around this is to run a production build twice, but that also increases our time it takes to run. Anything? All of this is about. Yeah, it mentions both of them, so why doesn't both of them work? Look at that. Let's look at what we have deployed right now. View source. Ah, I see the problem. We didn't have a trailing slash on here, and if I go look at this documentation, it does mention the trailing slash that we are missing. So let's go update our Cypress. This piece here as well. And toss that into there. Kick off all these tests, make sure they run. The next version of Cypress, because I don't believe I have updated. Yeah, I have not updated. Supposedly gets rid of this restore pages. All right, let's see if our Cypress. Let's get rid of that. So every time I update the Cypress JSON, it kills our running test. So we'll restart them. So update base href to not have full URL and have trailing slash. Let's truly make sure we've got our slash in here. Yep. All of these should have passed, and they did. And we will wait for this to catch up here in a sec. And we'll close some browsers down, or tabs. If this one doesn't work, I'm going to comment out running of, or take out running of the Cypress test. This is part of Travis, and I'm going to do the full URL just to see. Waiting for the paint again. It's kind of funny how impatient we get waiting for this stuff. And I remember doing builds 10, 15 years ago, and this same build would take 10, 15 minutes to run just because we didn't have as much processing power. At least we have some tunes to help us pass the time. While that is running, I'm going to open up a little notepad here. I wonder which one it is. Oh, nothing's flagging for last password. That's a great question of which one it is. So I gotta go look that up, and we'll wait for this to run. Okay, we have a syntax error somewhere. So we'll have to look at that in a moment. Alright, we will have to log into Notion later. Because it is. Got logged out on my phone as well. Where did I accidentally add a extra token? So not there. Sweet, got a bunch of those. Just run everything locally and see what actually broke. Because the only change we should have had was this / here that we put into our base ref. unit test. As soon as it's done building, we'll take a look and make sure our distribution directory didn't do anything funky with our base href. Come on, build. Well, that's running. Let's take a look at our disk directory here. It looks good for our base href. At least we got the same error. Wish I knew where it was coming from. We'll just kill this from running since... or attempt it. There we go. Let's see here. npm run CY start server. In theory, I should be able to go here and browse through the site. What did we change? So We did add in base URL here for Cypress open, but that's not a command we're running. Only package, only Travis YAML. Travis YAML. It seriously feels like that's the only thing that changed. What the? If I put a trailing slash on it, it breaks everything. I'm a little baffled. Alrighty then. I am totally baffled. Why a trailing slash would break. I wonder if this is an issue with the Angular HTTP. It doesn't break at the home page. I wonder if it's this actual server that's breaking. See if there's an open issue. Nope. Looking through and seeing we can figure out where that instead of running this command, run ngserve prod. And actually come on, give me the help command. Alright, so I can't update the base ref. On href / angular tutorial - code. See if we can eliminate the Angular HTTP server as the issue here, or not. wonder if there's a way to tell it to use an existing build for ngserve. I just proxy config. Does not look like it. Waiting for this to finish and launch. Come on. Is our 92% hang that I mentioned? Oh, to 93%. Come on. There we go. Alright. So it is an issue with Angular HTTP server. So I will take a note to actually open that issue and report it. Because that should not be giving that issue. And let's just double check, make sure there's nothing in here that nope, there is nothing in here for that. So let's work around this issue. Build prod on base href. Actually, let's just call it JS pages. There we go. Build prod GH pages. So we can do that. We can also remove out the env that we added earlier. Cypress env. Hopefully I highlight and type something and it doesn't want to overwrite it. The reason we are moving out of this config now is that it appears that the Angular HTTP server that we're using to launch or to start up the server for Cypress to use has an issue with our base ref having a trailing slash on it. And so we're going to actually run two builds, one without the updated base href and one with the href that we need for GitHub Pages. So there's no longer a need to support this, and the base ref would just be blank anyway. Okay, all of those are done. Let's do npm run CI. Let's make sure everything's working locally before we push to Travis. It's kind of comical we're ending up down this track because this was my initial thought. I was just trying to avoid having two Angular build cycles. I would definitely swing back around once the stream is over and get a little bit more details and try to get a sample or repository set up so I can submit the issue to the Angular HTTP server. Anytime I submit stuff to a repository, I like to be able to have an actual repo where they can reproduce the issue. And since we are going to continue to play with this repository and make it work the right way, hey, this is not the one for that reproduction. And maybe we'll do it on stream depending on time, but we are trying to keep the stream to about 2 hours. Where's the end? We are butting up against that here. We're at about an hour and a half right now. And here goes build number 1. waiting for our Cypress test here. And I see I missed a spot. We do not need this, and all of our tests are probably going to actually fail because of that. And one more time. Travis picked up our change here. And this remerged what tracking is because I appended the previous commit and I'd already pushed it up. So I know better than to append the previous commit. I should have just canceled it and done a new commit and a new push. But it is what it is. So our local one's running. First prod build, and then our Cypress test, which should pass this time. Watching our paint dry. This is where it feels like we need an on-stream game to play while we wait. I wonder if I have a trailing comma. I do. So no better than that. So we're going to let that run one more time. And we're going to go update a couple presentations while we wait for this to run. I got word back from VS Live that this is not allowed. So I need to see, can I just, be nice if I could just hide them. Where's the send to back? Come on. There we go. Send to back. There we go. And we will just leave the gray at the bottom. Just make sure none of the slides have it by accident. Okay. Undo it all here. Seeing a bit of white at the bottom that I wasn't expecting. There we go. Bring to front. Let's check in on our build. It is still working on the build. Quickly flying through this, making sure that on the bottom. Make sure you update the right one. Testing from the trenches. Oh, except I do not want all of these slides. Where does the slide deck actually end? 87. All the rest of the slides after 87 are backup slides. Slides that I had but didn't want to get rid of. So one slide deck updated. I'll have to update the second one. Yeah, this is normally how it goes, by the way, when you're doing builds and waiting. If I wasn't streaming, I would be doing other stuff and checking on the build. And that is what we are doing right now. So I can call these done and I can ship these off here as soon as we are done. 1 to 200. This is looking better. All of our Cypress tests passed this time, so now it's off doing our ng build, and then it will do a deployment. And one last slide deck to and I'm going to do an undo for this one because I want those on for my normal presentation. And you will see me later this month go through these presentations, probably live on stream. At least that's my goal. Everything should inherit from that top slide, and it did. So 1 to 54. I would say the 20-minute talk also is my most worrisome talk. It's been a bit since I've done that in 20 minutes. Alright, everything built locally. So, see. Fix extra trailing, comma. Push this up, and we are going to wait for TravisCI. And we can save that one because it's specific to VS Live. And while we're waiting for Travis, take a quick glance through. So this is the presentation that I'm building out for Cypress. It'll actually debut at CodeStock in Knoxville on April 13th. The conference is April 12th and 13th. I am speaking on April 13th, so it's a Saturday. And this talk is right after lunch. So plan here is to go through the intro is going to be kind of an opening story, little comic book style, talking about how the typical conversation goes, getting people into testing. Normally somebody complains like a customer. And then we're going to talk about this piece, and this slide is actually wrong. It is 70%, 10%. Yeah, we're going to drop that down to 10. And 20. But what I do need to look at is I have this same slide, I think, in the unit testing talk. See what are the numbers I put. So 10, 20, and 70. And 10, 70, 20. 10, 20, 70. 10, 70, 20. Actually, I copy this slide over. At one point I was doing end-to-end on top, so it made sense to have an upside-down pyramid. Now it does not. See how Travis is doing here. So in the middle of linting, talking about what is Cypress, Talk about why it is different, why it's more flake resistant, how to do debugging. Talk about how to get everything set up and running. Some gotchas, like we haven't talked at all on stream about blacklisting, but if you're doing something like Google Fonts or material design and you're behind a proxy server, then right now you will have issues with those coming in, and it will take a while before it says it can't reach them, so you can blacklist them so it'll skip right over them. We at one point in time were using TypeScript, and we found it's not nearly as stable and documented as just the JavaScript. And we'll talk about some of the stuff like when you're behind a proxy server, some of the things you need to worry about and how to set it up, like adding a it's not localhost, it is a no proxy setting in. And we'll talk a whole bunch about how do you do things like get form controls, type in stuff, check for visibility. We're going to add a whole slew of other stuff. In here, this is just some different placeholders. Since pretty much all the code looks to be, yeah, all the code is the same right now, and they're just placeholders. And then having the closing story that now the customer is actually happy, and that slide needs to go away. Actually, no, that slide's going to be there, because that is the here's where our customer was, and now we're going to go talk back, and now our customer is happy, and I'm noticing we don't want him to say amazing and looking grumpy. Let's see. We want customer on the. Do we not have a? What layout are we? That was not the layout. Let's see how our build's doing. Oh, making progress. We're down in the Cypress section. Ah. I have not got to update the layouts here, so we will get that taken care of. Our feature section is way too low. I want to scroll up. Where are we at with Travis? Past Cypress, onto our next build, and then we'll be onto our deployment. slide goes down here. Additional resources. Okay, it deployed. Let's see if it truly is working. Hey, it looks like we finally have success here. Let's log out, let's log in. Oh, hey, finally, after a couple hours of going back and forth, we finally have all of our stuff deploying out to GitHub Pages. So every single time we make a change to our chapter UI test branch, it will build this Travis, or run this Travis build here, and it will deploy out to our GitHub Pages site, which will actually be really useful so that I can show people, and people can see what are they going to be building during the day and the final results. In addition to the StackBlitz stuff that I have set up, but StackBlitz really isn't CI/CD and making sure everything is working. So let's go back and do just a quick recap of how we finally made this thing work. So the key for us was we had to update this base ref here. And what we discovered is this Angular HTTP server didn't like when we had this trailing slash here. For whatever reason, it started throwing really odd errors that we had an extra caret that it didn't know what the heck to do with. So to get around that, we're doing one build here, which is to build without the base ref update. So it's just the typical slash that you get for Angular. Run all of our Cypress test, and then run another build and update our base href so that we get a build in the format that we need to deploy out to GitHub Pages. And then in Travis, we updated our command here. So npx calling ngh, and all this pretty much stayed the same with the addition of putting in the $, so we can get our GitHub token environment variable, and then it deployed everything out to our GitHub Pages. I definitely didn't expect to take 2 hours to do this, but it is what it is, and welcome to the world of CI/CD and how long it sometimes takes. And in our Friday stream, because we are running up against the 2-hour mark that I try to keep our streams to, I am going to look at continuing down the Cypress route. I've been doing a whole slew of investigations with Cypress. I've got some blog posts set aside and where we're looking at screenshots, so we can take a screenshot of what our UI looks like and we can do a comparison of what it currently looks like. So this way we can actually validate layout. Because right now, up to this point, we haven't validated any layout. We've just validated that what is on screen matches, but it could be in any format. It could be any set of colors, any order. And so the screenshot testing, a lot of times we'll fix that. I've seen a couple posts both using an NPM package as well as a third-party solution called Percy. So we will look at both of those. We'll start with the NPM package. I've also seen a bunch of stuff recently about doing more custom commands in Cypress. So in all these places where we are doing some reusable pieces, we can put them into a reusable function so that we're not calling and duplicating our code in multiple places. We want to try not to duplicate that code as it does make our test brittle. So Cypress custom commands are that. So in future streams, we will definitely look at both of those. Friday is going to be the screenshot testing because I want to try that out before I go to code stock. And with that, thank you so much for joining me and hanging out for today as we got through our GitHub deployment and got all of that stuff working. Have a wonderful rest of your day.